All right, gentlemen, welcome in. Here we go. We got the whole crew in tow, and we are going to give high school updates for 2025 seniors or 2025 freshman class who are seniors right now. And I'm going to throw it to David for the first one. We got Keelan Russell continuing his just destruction of all the teams in his wake. This week going against DeSoto, which happens to be a pretty good defense. And what did he do?
Yeah, I watched the full game for the most part. But he was 27 of 36, 427 yards, 6 TDs, 0 interceptions. DeSoto is the 16th ranked defense according to Massey ratings. So I don't know. He pretty much dominated. He was on point most of the game. Was creating outside the pocket, inside the pocket. Still hasn't done tons of running or whatever. I think he's capable of it, but for the most part, he's just dealing. He's got some stacked receivers, so he's kind of just dealing from the pocket there. But he's just been uber efficient this year, so he's trending nicely.
Yeah, and going to that DeBoer offense we talked about a couple times this year already, like that is going to be a premium landing spot. I probably am too low on him at the moment. His frame's a little bit lighter, I guess, but it shouldn't really matter. And that is just absolutely torching people right now. And I agree with you, he can run. It's just he's just crushing it out there with DeCorian Moore, and that team is an absolute force. Matt, a guy I know you've continued to stump for. I think a guy who's in your top two as a true top tier quarterback this year, Tavian St. Clair, looking pretty good here. Although not playing against the best competition, is that watering down anything? But looks like he's having a great season so far. Can you give us his update? Ohio State commit.
He's doing pretty solid. I would say I'd like to see him do a little bit better, but you can't say it's bad. He's 110 for 165, 1,849 yards, 11.2 per attempt, 24 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. Then on the ground, he's 147 yards and 5 touchdowns, hitting that 100-yard threshold, which we'd love to see here. And the SOS is the 3,294th, which, like you said, not very good. I think that's probably about middling. Maybe a little under. I'm not too used to the Massey strength of schedules yet, but either way, I don't think there's too big of a takeaway from it. Really, it's just solid performance against competition.
Yeah, he's good. He's producing well over thresholds that we want anybody to produce at, and go into a fantastic system. So Keelan Russell and Tavian St. Clair, Bama and Ohio State respectively, 2 quarterbacks you should have in whatever order, but you're probably in your top 5 no matter what, and they are just continuing to prove it on the field this year. If you like what we do here on The Official, like and subscribe to this video, and also don't be shy to go back and check previous videos. And then over the summer in our archive, you have like breakdowns of each and every individual player for the 2025 class. Moving on to Deuce Knight. He was a little bit injured, a guy I really like, and a guy who made news last week, I believe, when he flipped his commitment from Notre Dame, longtime Notre Dame commit, to Auburn, which is a lot more exciting from a fantasy perspective. And he smoked his competition this past week with 4 passing TDs as well as a rushing TD. For those of you who may not be familiar, he profiles, in that hyper athletic, hyper spark score type guy like an Anthony Richardson or even a Lamar Jackson in terms of his athletic prowess. If you ask me, I think his throwing motion's a little funky. He's very long and spry in addition to being hyper athletic, but it's a little bit of a long motion. I'd like to see him clean that up a bit, but his passing has improved this year, and he's tracking to be a very exciting college fantasy player. Another guy who I think is in everybody's, top 5 in some order. And then we have the man of the hour, David. I mean, what can we say about Bryce Underwood? I think there's just no doubt he's a sell the farm type guy to get him on your C2C team. I think maybe one of the best QBs we've seen in how many classes? I mean, 2 or 3, would you say? And not only this class, I think it's clear where he is, but I mean, perspective wise, Bryce Underwood crushing the competition this year. And also, how high is he over the last 3 cycles?
Yeah, I think he'd probably be probably be number one for me. He's putting up big numbers. I think the biggest thing is that they're actually designing him runs, which is kind of a relief for me because I think as a sophomore, he did have like 600 yards rushing, but last year he only had like 150, 200 something.
Mm-hmm.
And so, he's already got over 300 in 5 or 6 games. So it's good to see. Should mention also, his competition is not good. So it's kind of similar to Tavian St. Clair, both playing in the Midwest, 3,389th strength of schedule. I think I looked up, there's I think it's 16,000 high schools or something like that. So if it gives you
still
idea,
on the, top third or so, but
yeah, so it's not great. So I guess if there is one concern, will he have a hard time transitioning? Maybe it could happen. That could creep up on him a little bit, but I think he will adjust eventually and it won't be much of an issue.
Yeah, and I mean on our fantasy points per game, which Matt has scraped most max prep stats of any quarterback who has at least a 24/7 composite rating and 2 games of max preps data. He's by far the most fantasy points per game, 43, and the next closest guy's 38, something like that. So, a full 5 points or whatever ahead of the next closest guy. So just kind of dominating in every facet is Bryce Underwood. Now moving on to running backs, and a question came up in our group team chat by Austin, one of the C2C founders, and he kind of said, "Look, where would you put Kylan Deere and Ousmane Chroma, side by side? And if you like one better than the other, how close is it? I think both are having really nice seasons so far. Matt, can you give us an A/B here, and how far apart are they, and who do you prefer between Chroma and Deere, 2 very highly rated running backs in the class?"
I mean, you should know my answer to that. I've been a Chroma guy for quite some time now. I think he offers a bit more as a runner than Deere does personally. I think Deere's kind of a linear runner, and I think Chroma can kind of do a bit of everything. He's also a fantastic receiver. One of the most productive receiving running backs in this class, actually, even being such a big running back as well. So I just think Chroma has such a strong, well-rounded profile, and even in this season he's performing well too. He just had another 100-yard game. Consistently putting up numbers against some of the top competition in Georgia.
In Georgia, that's right. Which Georgia's chock full of great teams. I know that you weren't on the show last week when we announced his commitment to Georgia. How tough was that? Hard of a pill was that for you to swallow? I know you hate Georgia depth chart.
Well, I mean, we'll see. Who knows? I mean, Frazier can produce there apparently as a freshman, so who knows what Chroma's going to do.
If you're good, you're good. David, guy you've talked about quite a bit, Marquise Davis. I know you were tweeting about him this weekend when he had just an insane game. Tell us on what Marquise Davis did. This is a Kentucky running back commit.
Yeah, he had a pretty impressive performance. He only played the 1 half because they blew out. They played Medina, which is Drew Alar's old team. They're not particularly good. They're 3,167th in the Massey ratings. That's Medina. But regardless, he did dominate, had 19 carries, 165 yards, 4 touchdowns in the 1 half, broke off some long runs, had a few runs where it kind of hurt his yards per carry, where he kind of got stuffed, didn't really have anywhere to go and just got swallowed up, but looked good overall. Didn't see much receiving, which is the one question mark on him right now, but I think he's going to be kind of ready to contribute as a freshman. He looks good to me.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't think Kentucky's going to give too much resistance on the depth chart, at least as it stands right now. Alvin Henderson watch, and the watch is, can he match Derrick Henry's senior season, which is one of the most insane stats you'll ever see. Right now, 55 fantasy points per game for Henderson. Henry's legendary senior season was 58. So close, but I don't know if he'll be able to make up a gap of 3 points per game. We'll see. A nice little nugget here in the show sheet. He's also on pace to be the first running back with 2 seasons of 60 or more rushing touchdowns. Jonathan Gray, if I'm reading this correctly, Jonathan Gray is one of the only guys who got close, and he had 65 and 59. But Henderson already has 60, and he's pacing for 60 again this year. So, this guy is setting records, like historical best ever type records, and is pacing even in the same galaxy as Derrick Henry. He's really one of the running backs I'm going to covet in this cycle, even though he's not massive. He's about 200 pounds, but like, production's everything. I think he's going to go to Auburn and produce something as a freshman. He's not going to be a zero in my opinion. And then, after that, it's wheels up for years 2 and 3. I think he's going to be a great running back. By the way, Jonathan Gray, correct me if I'm wrong, is he Jonathan Gray of the 4 touchdowns for the New England Patriots and then never played again, basically, like that guy?
No, that's Jonas Gray.
Oh, Jonas Gray. Yes. Okay.
Jonathan Gray was I think he was super highly rated, went to Texas, and I think he tore his, if I remember correctly, tore his ACL twice, I think, in college, and kind of fell off, but he had really high expectations.
Okay, Jonas Gray, that's the guy I'm thinking of. You're right. So, but Jonathan Gray, former highly touted recruit. So anyway, Alvin Henderson, all you really need to know is he is pacing historically. I mean, thousands and thousands of running backs, and he's up there with like the top 0.00001%. Gideon Davidson, Matt, guy who I think we've waffled on. Is he good? Is he not good? Are we tanking him? What are we doing? But seems to me back on track. What's your take here on Gideon Davidson headed to Clemson?
Yeah. Again, he's not a guy playing, some of the best competition out there. I believe I didn't mark it down. I believe it was single digits, like a 5 strength of schedule, somewhere around there.
Okay.
Out of Virginia, but 209 rushing yards per game is, really, really good. That's, on the top end of the class. He's accounted for 61% of his team's total yards, both passing and receiving. Almost 9 yards per carry, 40 fantasy points per game. So I mean, he's putting up very good numbers out there. Going to Clemson, we'll see how that goes. But
Clemson's offense is kind of resurrected. I mean, they don't look bad. They've looked awful for years, and now they're really cooking a little bit. So I think there's something there. Moffa's doing all right. Okay, so that'll do it for this portion of the show. We went over quarterbacks and running backs. We're going to give you wide receivers and tight ends, plus some other news and notes in the next episode later in the week. Thanks a lot. This has been The Official.